Close up those properties. Don't need to play around with them anymore. Deselect that layer. And now the last few things I want to do again, and I'm just trying to kind of make this more visual appealing. And this is kind of a really cool effect. You see it all the time. You probably haven't really noticed it when you're watching stuff, but all the time you'll see it in movie trailers and bumpers for sports and stuff like that. And it's based on an old technique from the very early days of moving picture, silent film, when they didn't really have zoom lenses. So what they would do is they had these matte boxes they'd put on the front of the camera, and they actually basically had like a shutter that they would use to create what they called vignettes. So you could kind of make people look at a specific part of the screen by kind of masking it off. And we're actually going to do that in After Effects. We're going to go back and dig into some old, things that you used to do. And again, you'll see this used all the time. And now that I've showed it to you, you're probably going to start noticing it. And it's a really cool effect that you can put on any of stuff you shoot to just kind of make it look a little more polished. See, we got all this crap in the background here. This is what happens when you're shooting in an office. You see all these desks, you see these horrible colored walls and gross furniture, and it's just like, it really isn't adding anything to me. And I really want people to focus on the most important part here. So that's why what I want to do now is I want to get people to focus on the most important parts. So I'm going to deselect any active layers, and again, I'm going to create a new layer, a new solid layer. So file, layer, new solid, and I'm going to give it a name. And since this is going to be what's called a vignette, which is a French word, I'm going to type that in there, except I kind of spelled it wrong. There we go. And again, I'm going to make comp size so it matches my composition settings. And now what I'm going to do is change that from white, which is what I had it last. And I'm going to change the RGB values all to 0, which is 0 black, also known as key black. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click OK. Of course, holy crap, everything just went black. Well, yes, of course it did. You basically just, create a new layer, and it's black, and it's on top of everything, and that's where I want it to be. But of course, I don't want it to obscure everything. So now what I'm going to do is I've got some other tools. So besides using the pen tool to create masks, we also have these shape tools as well. And actually, we're going to go and change it to an ellipse tool. And basically, when you've got a mask, which we do, on this, we've got this layer and we want to create a mask. By going to these shapes, we can actually create a mask. So what we're going to do is go up here, click, and just drag to create, a big egg. And it really doesn't matter, like positioning wise, as long as it's kind of sitting somewhere in the middle of the screen. And now you can see a mask already immediately appears. And of course, what I'm going to do now is I can expand that property so I can see like all the other properties. And there's the feathering. So what I want to do is I want to feather the crap out of that thing, right? That way it will, get softer around the edges. And of course, another thing I want to do too is I want to change the way it's working. So I'm actually going to invert it and then go back to those feathers now. And you can see now I'm basically just kind of, feathering those edges extremely, making it soft. So, I've got that. And other things that I can do too is I've got this mask expansion. So I can push the mask out a little further to the edges. And again, to get that that effect that I want to get. So that way, nobody's really looking at the corners as much now. Their attention is focused onto the area that I want them to look at. So basically now, when I play that, you can see how I created this vignette, which is basically going to kind of hide the rest of that crap in the background. And again, to show you, again, just how, much you could just go crazy with this stuff. Last thing I want to do, of course, now is I want to do some color correction. So I'm going to take that playhead right back to the beginning. And here's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some better color matching. So I'm going to go to that Office Mask movie layer, and I'm going to go up to Effect and Color Correction. And under Color Correction, I'm just going to use Auto Levels, which is just a way to just kind of warm up the colors a little bit. And again, if you don't believe that, you can see that effects controls up here. You can see the little FX. Turn it off and on. Notice how it warmed up. It took away some of that garish green that's usually created by fluorescent lights, and it just kind of warms it up a little bit. And now you can see when I play it back, yeah, that looks a lot nicer. Yeah, so file save as. Of course, at this point, I'm going to save as, update my version number. I'm up to number 7. And of course, assuming that this is my finished version, I'm going to go File, Save As again, Save As. And this time I'm going to call it Lesson 7. And I'm going to call it Final or Finished, whatever the hell you want to call it. It really doesn't matter. Just try to spell it right. And of course, now I need to change the folder that it's going to. So what I'm going to do now is find my Lesson 7 folder. And this time, because it's the final version of the AEP file, I want it to go into Finished Project. So again, when I'm marking these things, I'll look inside your master folder, and you can see there's my finished project. End projects should have like a whole bunch of these things, plus my autosave. But my finished one only has one. And then, of course, the last thing you need to do, of course, is render this out to your sample movie folder.